Let's say the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dean Reister,
Here.
Bill Boylan. Bryce Steiner.
Yes.
Jason Franks.
Yes.
John DeVore.
Here.
Ryan Smith.
Here.
Okay, we've already taken care of swearing.
Welcome aboard, John.
You.
Due to technical difficulties with the recording last month, we did paper minutes. Everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from last month's meeting. Entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I move we approve.
Second.
Motion on the floor to approve the minutes from the April meeting. Dean Reister,
Yes.
Ryan Smith,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Same.
Jason Franks.
Yes.
John DeVore.
Yes.
Moving along, everyone has had a chance to review the bank reconciliation and the finance reports from the month of April. Questions, entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Make motion to approve. Second.
Motion on the floor to approve the April finance report from bank reconciliation. Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
Ryan Smith.
Yes.
At this time, we'll recognize the guest, that has to be on the agenda, Tanya. If you come up, please, and you'll be on the video, and a reminder, you've got 3 minutes to present to council.
Does John sign all this stuff too?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Right. So you just sign anywhere, one of
Good
those lines.
evening. My name is Tanya Walker. I am the sole proprietor of Crazy Crafters LLC. I have a vendor license and a tax ID. I am a home-based small craft business. Basically, what that means for me is I get to craft in the comfort of my home, but I need to rely on church bazaars and local vendor events like Day in the Park and Antler Pigs to sell my items. Oh, and I get to pay taxes on the goods I sell. With everything going on, who knows how much longer the local events will be held? Quite a few have stopped happening already. I am here because of the garage sale ordinance that is being proposed. I would like to know who is really against yard sales. Most people like going to garage sales for the bargains. If you have kids, they outgrow their clothes fast. Having a sale is a great way to get rid of them, but also help other parents with kids. It can save you money. New clothes are expensive and kids go through them quickly. If you're just starting out, buying secondhand household items helps with expenses. When you decide to change the decor in your house, selling the old items helps pay for new ones. Would you rather see all of these items go into a landfill? I think it was said a few times in the zoning meeting that they wanted people to sell their own things on their own property. What about multifamily yard sales? Sometimes one person doesn't have enough to hold a sale, but if they combine with their friends and family, it can make a nice sale. Maybe I don't have a garage, but my neighbor does. Will the ordinance make it so people can't combine their products for a sale? Something was said about not buying things just to sell them. Sometimes you buy things thinking you'll like them, but don't, so you sell them. As a small business, it's getting harder to find events to set up at. Usually local churches and a few committees will put on bazaars or vendor events. Because of COVID and the work that goes into putting on an event, they aren't happening as much. It is harder to find places to sell our products. Small businesses need some exposure and time to build up a clientele before becoming a brick and mortar business. Becoming and continuing to be a business is very hard for everyone. Setting up at vendor events gives us all a chance to see how it will go. In September, I hold an event. I invite local vendors to set up and sell their wares. It's an outside 2-day event. We set up in our yard and neighboring yards. This will be our 5th year. Last year was our biggest event with 19 vendors and a food truck. We were spread out in 5 yards. I asked for copies of any legal complaints about our sale. I was informed there has never been a complaint about my sale or others. With no legal complaints about any sales, I don't understand why we're even talking about the ordinance. I make sure before the event to contact the police department and let them know and ask them to keep an extra eye out since everything stays set up overnight. They do a great job patrolling our area. I know there's something about signs. My signs are regular yard signs. We put them out Thursday evening before our sale and take them down Saturday after our sale. GPS usually takes people to East Canal Street instead of west, so that signs help the out of town and out of state customers find us. I work in Fort Wayne, so my coworkers show up for our sale. Some even take the time to check out other businesses in town. I let them know what businesses are open and where they can get food. We have had people from out of town show up because they follow some of our vendors. I need to know how this ordinance affects my sale. Will I be able to hold my sale? Do we need permits? How many? Is it time for me to take my sale to another town? I've been told I can get buildings in Paulding and Hicksville. When I started this event, COVID had us all shut up for months. It was a way to get people out. I have continued the event to give our small village something to look forward to and help fellow vendors have a place to sell their wares. And if you want proof, here's my vendor's license and tax.
Thank you.
Jan has been to my sale.
I have one question for you.
Yes,
When you advertise your sale, you advertise it at craft and art show and sale rather than a garage sale?
now we just call it Crazy Crafters and Friends Annual Sale. Because we mostly have craft vendors, food truck.
Okay. Yeah, you're like you said, you're an LLC, small business. And in my opinion, that's, you're putting on you're sponsoring the event through your business. You're not a private individual, so it wouldn't, this ordinance for the garage sale wouldn't cover you because you are a business that is sponsoring the event, and it happens to be at your property and neighboring property. So I wouldn't think that, including the signs, would be an issue because you're not running a garage sale or holding one at that time. But that's my opinion.
But I also set signs out around town, and I thought there was something said about only running
Right.
signs in
Well,
your own yard.
Like I said, since it's a business event or something, it would not, the signs, the permits and all that stuff wouldn't be part of what you would have to do.
I just want
in
to
my
be
opinion.
positive before I have all these vendors up in the yards
Right.
and somebody shows up and says, hey, you gotta take this down.
I don't think, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I don't think this next would apply to you. This is just coming to us, and so I know, we're gonna have a discussion about it. I think a lot of us have had calls and people discuss with us, disagreements about it. And so I think it's good that you come in and talk because you do a lot for the community and we appreciate that. But I don't think this is like targeting that. And so I think you're gonna be safe there. And like Bill said, I think with it being a business, it'd be like, Antwerp Days or Day in the Park, we put banners up and signs up. And so if you're putting on a bazaar, again, I think that's the same thing. But I appreciate you coming in and talking to us. And I think, I think you'll find that it's probably not going to end up being what it's hyped up to be. But
With some of the wording that was being said, and I know it wasn't set in stone, I just wanted to be positive. Because like I say, I can't have 20 vendors set up and someone show up and go, hey, you got to shut this down.
right. No, that'd be bad for everybody. So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
George is gonna be in later or not for the police report.
Seen him today.
I haven't seen it yet. Any committee reports?
Yeah, we had, zoning committee met last Tuesday. We had, quite a few things on our plate to do. We were kind of behind. We had, missed a month of meetings and then we had changed our zoning or building inspector, zoning inspector. So we kind of got out of track. We discussed an application, for a variance board zoning appeals on the property down there across from the dispensary. And we went through the laws and you have a copy of it in the back of your packet. It shows all the different brackets. It talks about the parking lots. It's the second one from the bottom. And parking lots are not allowed in any zoning area in Antwerp. So it doesn't mean you can't have a parking lot, but what it does mean is if you want to put one in, it automatically has to go to the appeals board and they have to meet on it in a public hearing so that people, the neighbors next to them or anybody that's affected by it has an opportunity. It's not an automatic, we're putting in a parking lot type of deal. It's, you'll see in that chart that has it listed as an accessory for I-2, which is the grain elevator. Their parking lots out back. They went through the board originally, not our board, but
they went through and got the proper stuff in order to put them in. So that's why we reviewed it. We decided we needed to send it on. They had discussed possibly making it a B2 area to where they wouldn't be required, but according to the ordinances, no matter where you put it, they have to go through the appeals board. So that's why it was moved on. It's been posted on the front door and on Facebook and on our website. So that's where went on that one. We discussed the part of, well, it started out as a trailer ordinance and it's been kicked around. And then the Oakwood come out with a newspaper ad, I believe last month or something. And we had contacted them, the mayor or the village administrator wasn't able to get back to the zoning inspector in time for our meeting. Cause we wanted to review theirs, but we reviewed Lima's because there's a lot of legal stuff. If you're gonna condemn a property or a structure, you can't just go in and say it's bad. You've got to have the proper paperwork. You have to have proof that it's devalued to a point to work non-fixable and stuff. So that's what we're working with on that. And in the new business, you'll see all these ordinances that we've passed through on it to try and get it done. So I suppose we get to new business, we'll have more discussion on it, but that's what we worked on. Hopefully it wasn't any problems. Too many, but
Can I make a comment on that?
sure.
So at the Oakwoods ordinance actually came from Antwerp. They copied ours. George took it directly over there. So we already have it in our book. So it's not something we have to re-engineer the wheel on. Might need some modifications, but it's already in our zoning and our rules.
That's it. At that time, I didn't know what Oakwood had or where they were getting it from.
It literally came from Antwerp.
That's what we have for a committee report.
Any other committee reports? If not, we'll move into the fiscal officer report. Okay, the first thing on the fiscal officer report is the emergency reading of resolution 2025-08. This is excuse me. George, do you want to give your report before I start the fiscal officer report or have?
George.
Doing a good job, George.
Thanks, George.
Okay, so first item on the fiscal officer report is the emergency reading of resolution 2025-08. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the police chief of the village of Antwerp, Ohio regarding payment of his accrued but unused sick leave time and declaring the same an emergency. As you've seen when you come in, there was some modifications that were made to this after further review in the Ohio Revised Code where there will be no carryover of sick time. It'll basically be starting effectively new.
You zeroed out.
Zeroed out. That's the biggest change on it. Or the only change, right? That's the only change.
Yep.
So, since you guys had a chance to review it prior, other than that change, is there a motion to suspend the rules on 3 readings?
What fund does that come out of?
On the 7th day reserve fund, as mentioned in the resolution.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules. Sorry.
Is there a second to Bryce's motion?
I'll second that.
Motion on the floor to suspend the rules of 3 readings on resolution 2025-08. Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Brian Smith,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. At this time, we would need, unless there's further questions, we need a motion to adopt the resolution 2025-08.
I'll make it.
Jason
I'll
Franks.
second.
Motion on the floor to adopt resolution 2025-08. Jason Franks, Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
and Brian Smith.
Yes.
Moving on, we have resolution 2025-09. This is an emergency resolution. It's a resolution of necessity to levy a replacement with an increase of an existing tax in excess of 10 mil limitation for the purpose of maintaining and operating a cemetery. This was brought to I spoke with Sean Dooley in regards to the levy. We always run these 2 years, or we are allowed to put it on the ballot 2 years before it expires. So it's not ready to expire yet. This just gives us the opportunity, if it does fail, we can actually run it again next year. Sean recommended that we run this as a replacement levy because even with the increase last time, they're still running awful tight, and he thinks there's future expenses that are gonna go up too, because as of now, they've got the employee that's mowing, been doing it for several number of years, and they expect him to retire sometime soon. So they're gonna probably have to contract out the mowing of cemetery, so.
The copy I have is not marked as an emergency in title.
In title, it's not, but if you go down to
It is in the
in
text.
the text,
But do we need, since we have 2 years, do we need to make this an emergency?
well, be able to get it on the, I dropped the ball, I'll admit, I dropped the ball. We gotta do the levy of necessity first. That'll send it to the county auditor to tell us what we'll actually collect.
Okay.
Then we'll do the levy to place it on the ballot for the citizens to decide if they want to do that.
Okay. Let me
So
ask one more
we have to have
question.
everything in by August. So in order to get the time frame to meet August deadline.
Then we can have 3 readings as a regular ordinance to put it on the ballot.
It says the amount of taxes that will be raised within the 10 mil limitation will be insufficient. But then in section 10, subsection B, it says we're only intending to go 1 mil. Is
So
that,
the 10 mil
is
is
that
the
replaced?
that's the general, no, the 10 mil is the general levy. And then if we have any other levies in excess of that 10 mil, then we have to, it's a 1 mil levy. So our general fund gets that 10 mil that's already automatically on
okay,
everybody's houses. And then if like the fire levy, the police levy and everything is in excess of the 10 mil. So this is another levy. It's not a new levy. This levy's been out, well, ever since I've been here. It's just we're putting it on the ballot for the citizens to be able to decide.
this is
For
a
renewal.
this is a replacement, not a renewal, right?
Correct. Replacement would be based on the new property values. And that was based on what Sean explained to me, because I asked him if he needed to run it as renewal or replacement.
Okay.
He said last time that this was on the ballot, they did it as a replacement. It did increase the revenue, but they're still pretty much setting flatline. Obviously with inflation, even with the increased cost, their cost of everything is just continues to go up. So that's why he recommended we run it as a replacement.
Did you use a flat line joke with John?
No.
I move we suspend the rules of 3 readings.
Motion on the floor to suspend the rules of 3 readings by Dean. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion on the floor to suspend the rules of 3 readings. Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore.
Yeah.
Brian Smith.
Yes.
At this time, we would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2025-09 for the levy of necessity.
I move we adopt.
I'll second.
Is that Jason?
Yeah.
Motion on the floor to adopt resolution 2025-09. Dean Reister.
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
Brian Smith.
Yes.
Moving on to emergency reading of resolution 2025-10. This is a resolution authorizing the village to enter into a new annexation agreement with Carryall Township, Paulding County, Ohio, regarding certain real property located adjacent to the village and declaring the same an emergency. I'll let you speak to the need for this one.
Yeah, so Tim Copsey with Paulding County Economic Development got in contact with me late last week. We had previously had a resolution go through council to approve this. Back in December, the information that we were given at the time is no longer the case. The legal description of the property has changed due to a required new survey by the county. And then in the interim, the property has been conveyed from Marlin Farms to BMJW Investments. Because of that, when they took that to the county to have it passed by resolution by the county commissioners, the county engineer and auditor made them aware that that would no longer be valid because it's now owned by someone else and the property dimensions are different. My understanding is the property dimensions are very slightly different. But this information was given to me on Friday, so I tried to get it put together, and unfortunately was only able to get it put together for everyone today. But yeah, that's what it is. It's just reauthorizing the village to enter into that annexation agreement with the county, or excuse me, with the township. What that does in a nutshell is just say While the annexation is pending, the township will continue to have the property tax revenues from that property. As soon as the annexation is done and official, then the village will receive those property taxes.
There's no question.
Which property is it? Okay, that's what I was thinking. I haven't had a chance to read through it, so.
No other questions, entertain a motion to suspend the rules for 3 readings.
I'll make the motion.
There's no other change other than Exhibit A. And the name of the company, right?
Yep, yeah,
We're
so
Approving the same thing in the same terms, nothing. Correct. Okay, good.
and
I'll second whatever
Legal
you said.
descriptions.
Second, Bryce Steiner, there's a motion on the floor to suspend the rule of 3 readings. Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes,
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
Brian Smith.
Yes.
This time we'd entertain him to adopt.
Make a motion to adopt.
a second.
Motion on the floor to adopt resolution 2025-10. Brian Smith,
Yes.
Dean Reister, Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner, excuse me,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
and John DeVore.
Yes.
Moving on to the emergency reading of ordinance 2025-07. This is an ordinance accepting the conveyance of Paulding County Auditor's parcel number 12-07S-010-00 from the Community Improvement Corporation of Antwerp, Ohio, dedicating the same as Meyer Avenue in the village of Antwerp, Ohio, and declaring this an emergency.
What's our shortcome on that?
Stumpy property being conveyed to the village and the street.
I move we suspend the rules of 3 readings.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to suspend the rules of 3 readings on ordinance 2025-07. Dean Reister,
Yes,
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
and Brian Smith.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-07.
move we approve.
So this is specifically because of that road that was put in, is that correct?
It
It's
was
renaming the road to Meyer Drive or
Meyer Avenue.
Meyer Avenue.
It's never had a name.
It's
And
it's
they
been
made
a
it-
lot owned by the CIC.
They made a donation to name it with their name.
But it is that one that has just newly paved
Just
last
paved,
fall.
yeah.
That's the one.
That's the
Okay.
one.
I move we approve.
Second.
Motion on the floor to adopt ordinance 2025-07. Dean Reister,
Yes,
Jason Franks,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
and Brian Smith.
Yes.
and now on a road.
Yeah, buddy.
Next we have the first reading of ordinance 2025-08. An ordinance amending section 2 of ordinance number 2000-19, establishing a schedule of fees, charges, and expenses and collection procedure for zoning permits, amendments, appeals, variances, conditional use permits, and other matters relating to the administration and enforcement of zoning in the village of Antwerp, Ohio, and regulating the fees to be paid to the zoning inspector for the purposes. This is one that was started last fall and then was sent back to zoning for amounts. And I think, Bill, you brought up that they finished up correcting the amounts that they wanted, correct?
Yes, originally, when we submitted it first time, we had a fee of $500 in there for, zoning change deal. And the council said it was extreme and possibly would not be able to collect it, so we went back and redid it and set it for $250. And we come back and then council said, well, we needed to adjust the rest of the fees because they hadn't been done for 25 years. We were still back there. So basically what we did, we kept everything. We just doubled all the fees for most everything except for the one for $250, and that stayed the same. So that's what the change was. And it's, since it's been going back and forth for 3 months or better. That's why it's been revised.
Yeah.
Revised.
I would like to suggest a change in that, and I think it was discussed that we were going to double all of them, which you did, except the 5 cents per square foot, I thought was supposed to go to 10. Because it was 5 cents 20 years ago. And many other places are actually a lot higher, not that that matters because we're Antwerp. But I think we should bump the square footage up to 10 cents per square foot. In the section 2 of the schedule of fees. To be consistent.
You wanna make a motion to that effect, to have Brandon revise the ordinance? Is that what you're getting, or you just want?
That is exactly, yeah, I will, I mean, I would entertain discussion to see if I'm out of line, but I think that's what would be a good idea to do. And I will make a motion towards that, but if somebody else thinks it's can come up with a reason why not to do it, please share.
Bryce has made a motion to adjust the schedule in section 2 from 5 cents per square foot to 10 under the zoning permit fee. Is there a second to his motion?
I'll second it.
Motion on the floor to have Brandon revise ordinance 2025-08, section 2 to change the 5 cents per square foot, 10 cents per square foot.
Can I clarify real quick before we vote? Will we be changing both the zoning permit fee and the zoning permit fee for fences only? Both of those to 10 cents? Or just,
Yes.
okay, gotcha.
And wherever it is listed, one is 5 cents per square foot, and the other one would be 5 cents per linear.
So 10 cents, 10 cents for
10
both.
cents, yes, change them, whatever says 5 cents, now moves to 10.
Just using an average of about a 2,500 square foot home.
Mhm.
That's about $125 for a permit. If we change it to 10 cents, then that permit goes up to $250. That's
Correct.
kind of what we're looking at is just the average. I don't think it's unreasonable myself.
Well, I will tell you, I mean, I just actually did just processed paperwork on the house today and the zoning fee is $252, but they're also doing, they call it a barn, but it's an oversized shed shop. But my point is in contact or in conversations with contractors, they're amazed that we don't require them to have permits. And they're amazed that we do not charge them RETA tax. So 5 or 10 cents a foot is dirt cheap.
Mhm.
Really is.
And what you just suggested might need to be remedied.
Okay, so well, there is.
Another day.
That's another day.
There is a motion on the floor to revise ordinance 2025-08 from 5 cents per square foot and 5 cents per lineal foot to 10 cents on both.
I'll second that.
Bill Boylan already seconded it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
and Brian Smith.
Yes.
We will have a first reading of it as revised next month.
You saw that's in section 1 as well, right?
Well, section 1 is the old.
Yeah.
That's the,
Oh,
so
gotcha.
section
Yeah.
2 is the new section. the new one. We'll make the revisions for next month and start it back over. Moving on to the ordinance 2025-09. The first reading of an ordinance renaming a portion of Stone Street in the village or banning intersections of Stone Street and South Main Street to the intersections of Stone Street and Erie Street to Bourbon Street. Questions on that one? If not, I'm finished with the physical. We'll move into old business. So in old business, you all received a updated letter, regards to the business on Buffalo Street. Basically, the change that was made on that from the original contract was who was in charge of enforcing the zoning violations and the signatures on the letter. But there's no discussion. I think we need a motion to proceed with this, correct thing? Proceed with sending these letters.
I don't think we need to send it, she's already moved out. I think she's already done what was asked of her. I think this could cause other issues.
So
That's my,
I feel like we need to follow through with where we're at I mean, if she has already done, then the letter's null and void, but at least if she hasn't, then we can say that she has been notified. So we have our legal standing that she's in violation. And the property owner.
In theory,
I
you should.
mean, they've, I guess they've, and I guess from what I hear, I don't know for sure, but they've said they've quit before and they have not, so. To hear them say they've quit again to not get the letter, I would rather see them get the letter, so we're at least have our legal standing.
Did anybody go down and talk to her?
I have not.
I did.
No, I think if we
I think,
don't go forward with that letter,
I think.
he
this-
leaves, comes back a month later, starts all over again, and then you're right back to square one. You
Well,
gotta-
that's seven to the landlord too, because technically if he rents it to the next person and they do the same thing, I mean, that kind of resets the wheel, if it will, I think.
I think there's other issues going on that we haven't all heard about. And we also, I'm not sure that meeting was conducted well, because we were told before that the meetings aren't valid unless people were sworn in. On December 3rd meeting, we had a meeting in July. That didn't take place. So just be wary of this kind of stuff. We aren't following through consistently on these meetings. And there's a couple other things, but that's, I think if by moving out, she's already taken care of it. So I'm just done speaking on that. So if you want to go ahead and send it, go ahead and vote, but
I mean, are we sure she moved out? Is that?
I talked to her. Okay, I specifically talked to her because I want to find out what's,
When did you talk to her, Bryce?
about 3 days ago.
3 days ago? She said she was gone. I think we still should send the letters, just so we've got it on record that we did it.
My personal opinion would be is, I would rather see people start hobbies and turn them into businesses that we could turn like a building that isn't being used. That like a door, a letter that opens doors rather than closes them, and say, hey, maybe instead of doing it out of your house, maybe for 3 months, we could help you get a business license, help you expand. We've got some empty space upstairs. Maybe we could help people rather than close doors on.
I'm not gonna disagree with what you're saying, but from what I recall in the beginning, people had suggested that she get locations outside of her house to run her warehousing part of her business.
Yeah.
And evidently she has chosen not to go with that advice.
Oh, she hasn't moved it out. She's exactly followed through. It's just outside of town.
But I
I'd
mean,
rather see people.
my last email about the whole thing was just last Friday was an email that I've got among many emails that I have received about this business disturbing the neighborhood or whatever it's doing down there. I don't live there and I don't travel that way, but I understand it's a dead end street that's narrow. And and from what I can tell, she's been notified, she's been told. I'm not saying that I don't want people to have businesses, but when your businesses infringe on the neighbors and they complain or at least put off enough that they send emails complaining to the legislative body of the village that we're not doing anything about it, then I feel like we should probably do something about it. I mean, I'm all for people running businesses, but they can't infringe on the neighbors.
When I think it came out that like there wasn't, it's not an official business. Like she's not paying taxes on any of that stuff she's selling. So there's no tax money coming to the village. So it's just basically she's running her business without restrictions and doing what she wanted. And so, and again, people have brought up like daycares and tax services or what. I'm pretty sure the tax guy is probably filing taxes, I would assume. Daycares, I don't know, it becomes the ordinance actually says like you can't sell objects. So that's different than a daycare. And I think that's where we ran into the issues and so.
We probably don't need to rehash it all.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
I think that's a very valid concern. At the same time, not having a vendor's license also kind of says I'm a hobby. You know, no signs, no retail storefront, nothing like that. That's why I like to encourage people to, hey, come up here, let the town help. But let's be a gateway rather than.
Sure.
I think we
I'm
did
all
make
for that.
suggestions. I mean, like he said, you know, about, and, you know, I mentioned like, you know, if you could spread it out. I think people are willing to bend if other people are willing to bend. But then what we hear from these emails is, you know, people are slamming their doors, revving their engines, honking their horns, being loud. And I think it becomes where they're doing it to be, you know, like, haha, we can do this. And what are you
Well-
gonna do? And so that it creates more drama
Right.
and more tension and, you know, we don't, that's definitely, we don't want in the village, but I don't disagree. You know, it's great. We have a lot of empty buildings. It's awesome if you could figure out a way to get people in the buildings and
Absolutely.
so. I mean,
Well, I think,
This is basically, we've discussed all this
I was
before.
gonna say, we're discussing stuff before. Right here, we're talking about, do we want to proceed with the letter? So. think
I
we need a
feel,
motion- a
I
motion.
feel we should proceed
So
with
are
the
you making a
letter.
motion to proceed?
I will.
For a second to Dean's motion to proceed with sending the letter.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to proceed with sending the notices, both notices to the business owner and the land property owner. Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner.
No.
Jason Franks. John DeVore,
Yes.
Brian Smith.
yes.
Sign that. Okay, new business. I don't know if. Brian, do you want to give your administrator's report before we move into the stuff that was in the packet, or how do you want to handle that?
Yeah, I can give mine, and then if you wanna, 2 items. I'd like to start as preference. I will need an executive session for acquisition of property. And we'll do that after the mayor gives her report, so we can turn the recording off, and then we just won't turn it back on, because we'll have no action. That's more of a comment or discussion we need to have. First thing is it is the time for our annual renewal of our Ohio plan that provides all the liability insurance and everything for the village. We have an increase. We are going from $41,576 in the year 2025 to $44,217 for the year 2026. What has caused the increase is, and there's a 3% increase just overall for inflationary measures, but we also increased our insurance liability coverage by $2.1 million. We have 3 fire trucks that were, I'm gonna say grossly underinsured. And we added an additional $200,000 worth of coverage per fire truck for a total of $600,000. We also took out a policy on earthquake coverage. And I know I was not in favor at first, but when they came back and told us the number of seismic events in this area, it kind of became apparent that we probably ought to just go ahead and get it. So we put on that rider, and that's $1 million. So if the village hall falls down, we'll have extra money to build something. But we took one of the vehicles off the insurance, but at the end of the day, we got about a $2,800 increase. And we'll execute that probably tomorrow, but I just want to give you on that.
That insurance, is it completely, if a fire truck, do we have to pay anything if a fire truck would get destroyed?
We have deduct,
We have deductibles on everything.
but it is replacement cost of a new one versus.
I
you know,
saw it
we've
was
got
listed
we've got
as-
a 1998 truck or something. They don't replace it with equal value of that. It's
It's current
Current value.
value, and
That's
it's the
what-
same thing for the building. Because it looked like the building might only be 400,000, but I would guess.
I'd have to actually look at the
I
policy
would
because
guess
there's
our
so many
building
different things.
Replacement costs would be significantly higher at this point in time.
I have some more discussions about insurance if we want to do that, or we can wait till after your report. Cause I was reviewing the insurance also,
You're talking about the insurance on liability and stuff.
the liability for the village, yes.
Certainly.
So when I was reviewing the insurance that we had, I was looking through the events that we've got, and the village carries liability insurance for the, day in the park and trick or treat.
Mhm.
So, and I know we have other events that happen on village property in the community. So when I was reviewing, I asked, AC/DC if they had a policy, since we weren't carrying it, and they carry an insurance liability policy that covers their Red Fest Day and any other events that AC/DC has. But my concern is we have other events in town, that are occurring, that are growing and getting larger. And I don't know if they have insurance coverage. So I don't know if we can reach out to some of the other event holders or if they're actually sanctioned to get, you know, proof of insurance for their events.
Well, I mean, it's certainly,
I mean, anything happening on village property is a huge liability for the village. And I feel it needs to be covered by a liability policy. You know, if we're not covering it, then I feel as though whoever the event coordinators are need to cover it.
Antwerp Chamber, when they were doing Day in the Park, they always had a writer for that.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
chamber does those,
but I
and
do-
that's on ours as a writer with the chamber. I believe we cover that.
I would assume Rotary, now that they took over, I would assume they do. I don't know that. Do we, so you're asking, do we verify that they have their own coverage in addition to ours?
Well, I'm
Because
just saying that
They're
we,
gonna, whoever's gonna sue is gonna sue the guy who's got the most insurance.
yeah, our village has, insurance writers in our coverage. It was in the email we received on
Mhm.
our insurance policy. And the only two things that I seen listed on the Antwerp Village coverage are trick or treat and the day in the park, and they're both sponsored by the chamber, is what it says in our insurance policy. So that shows that we have coverage through the village insurance policy for those two events. My concern was Rib Fest, and that's sponsored by AC/DC, which is a 301(c). And they have their own liability coverage for that event. So the village isn't actually liable for injuries during that event. But I know we have other events in town. Actually, Miss Walker back here actually said that she's got an event that happens partly. Okay, so that's great.
I'm
That's
legit,
what we need.
100% legit.
So that's fine. And then there's the other one, I believe they call it Rock on the River, which I don't know if that's a sanctioned organization that's running that. Do we have a?
they've never approached the village and asked for authorization to use the park.
Because that event seems to be growing too and happening on the side of a river after hours in the dark, fires and whatever else is going on out there.
Doesn't
With
have
alcohol.
anything to do.
Yeah, I don't know that. I've never been there. I've never been to the event, but I've heard it's spectacular and I want to encourage the event. But I want to make sure that the liability of the village is being protected. So,
Well, I mean, the village liability insurance would not cover it. At the end of the day, Bryce is correct. He who has the largest pocket is usually the first one on the list to be sued. But we don't have insurance on that. And we talked to our insurance company and they recommended that the event sponsor get a liability policy. It gets a little expensive to put that in your annual, rider, and you say, well, there's open bonfires and there's fireworks and there's alcohol, and there's water, they start looking this and they say, well, this is gonna get kind of
it actually
expensive.
is after hours of the park. The posted park hours are dusk to dawn, and I know this is an evening event, so I'm concerned of whether or not, I don't want to say it's the park board's decision, but if anybody's ever reached out for permission to even use the park, that's the village property after hours with all the rules violations. That's my concern. I don't say that I don't want the event. I just want to see the liability of the village be minimized.
I think you guys have a point. So maybe on all these events, we need some kind of a sheet that says you have purchased insurance, please provide a copy.
Yeah, I know in the past we've had people that's done work for the village on village property, and I believe we've had them sign off on liability forms released in the village from injury and liability during whatever those deals were too. So I'm not sure how we would go about finding out who the event sponsors are legally.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with you and Bryce, like relative to it's, I mean, it's a big liability, but it sounds like most of them have some sort of.
Coverage, everybody, all the events are
I know
covered.
The Rock on the River is new, so maybe they just aren't aware that I mean.
Might,
if
yeah,
nobody's
they
told
may
them-
not be aware they need it, but,
Especially with fireworks, so you're really talking.
Yeah, well, no, like you
And
said.
maybe they
yeah.
do have it.
and then maybe they do have it, but I'd like to see it or
Yeah.
at least show proof of it.
Well, the one thing is that if they have it, then in order to use the park, they would have to name Antwerp as one of the writers on the policy, the Village of Antwerp. Otherwise, I mean, it doesn't give you a hold harmless. So they would need to, and it doesn't cost anything. The insurance agent goes in and just puts in Village of Antwerp and so, but I mean, yeah, there needs to be a conversation with the folks with that event. I've never been asked if it's permissible. They've never asked permission of the village. They may have talked to somebody else, but I've never had a conversation with anybody.
So who do we have reach out to these? I mean, those people, I guess we already know CIC, or I mean.
ACDC does
AC/DC.
Rib Fest.
So is that, and that's Antwerp based.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and then Day in the Park, I know CIC or Rotary takes that over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if they have,
So those three events, I'm pretty sure, I haven't actually seen the proof of insurance from the ACDC, but I presume that they wouldn't have pulled my leg.
no, I don't think, I'm sure.
And,
Dustin-
and that means we also probably need to change on our current, on what they sent us, that Antwerp Chamber is not the one hosting those in the park anymore.
It's the Rotary.
It's the Antwerp Rotary.
On that comment noted.
I think the village has to have a copy of their insurance policy on file.
Yeah.
So you just can't, taking somebody word, oh yeah, we got plenty and now they got $100,000,
Yeah, but I mean, they can go get a liability policy for 24 hours. It's not like
Sure.
they have to
Yeah.
pay for 365.
Right.
You just go in and, it's a couple $100 or whatever it is, and you have it for 24 hours and you don't use it, it goes away. That's it.
Right.
I think we should
I
have
mean,
some.
Do we
setup.
need a resolution stating that all events need to provide proof of insurance to the village? That would be part of the permit process if we have one for events.
Well, we don't have a permit process, but I
Mhm.
don't
Okay.
disagree. We probably should have a resolution stating that if you're going to use village property, here's the process that you have to take. And one is provide us a copy of and there should be a minimum dollar amount valuation. I mean,
Yes.
when I was at the county, it was a minimum of $1 million policy. But
Probably twice that now.
I was gonna say,
Well,
last time I took
depends on what you're
liability,
doing.
last time I took liability, it was recommended I get a $5 million policy, so.
What do they do now if like somebody has a graduation party or a large gathering at the park?
I think
We
during
allow that.
the park day use and all that stuff's fine. It's all within
Yeah.
the,
Special events.
Yeah.
Okay.
anybody that would get hurt at the park during normal usage would be covered under the village liability.
So how would this affect the school for having cross-country events? Are they
That's
listed?
another question.
I don't think it's necessarily an issue because
Okay,
if you feel like it, you can go run through the park right now. So I mean, it's not much different.
well,
I
I'm
don't-
thinking of
don't-
more like an athlete from Timbuktu Falls.
Are they doing them in the park anymore?
Yes.
Okay,
They
I
did
knew they
last
quit
year.
for a while,
I would-
because they were putting in the
Yeah.
splash pad and all that, but they're back to doing this.
As far as I can tell, they are.
Okay.
Yes. And maybe the school, it has that covered.
I would
already.
presume the school would be covering
Right.
their students.
Yeah.
No matter where they're at, if they're taking them somewhere, but it's a question that
It'd be
could be
like going to a
asked.
playing a football game and getting hurt.
Right.
So could you draft a resolution of what we're talking about? Because I
Yeah.
think we
need
should
to know the
have,
limit of liability that we're gonna require though, so you guys are gonna have to tell them what to put in there. It's $1 million or $5 million or $2 million or.
I mean, last time I had liability for just doing side work, it was 5 million.
If you're talking a crowd, something happens and half a dozen people are injured at once.
yeah, and maybe it's based on number of people. Like if you've got 50 people versus
I don't
250.
think that's how
what we're
insurance
doing for
works.
it, though, because How you gonna know how many they're gonna have? That
Right.
It's easier just to say.
What do you think a $2 million policy costs? I mean,
for a day.
Okay.
Shouldn't be much. I mean, and it's not like.
I'd say
Okay.
maybe $2 million.
Yeah, I would say let's start there. If in the month between now and the next meeting, we find that we are woefully in error, then we can ask for a modification. But I do think we need to have a piece of paper provided by an insurance company that states their event
Proof
is
of
covered and the village of Antwerp will not be held liable. Is that correct?
Well, the village of Antwerp will be named as a,
Yes.
Additional insured.
yeah,
Yes. Okay.
Can I ask a question on that?
no, ma'am. I'm sorry, but
If you've got an idea, I would love to hear it.
No, I just wondered, Jan, that one year that I had to call the mayor's office because a little girl got out of the vehicle and the water cover wasn't on, so she fell down the little hole. That is still the city, or
Mhm.
that would be my insurance?
That was with the
I
city.
believe that would be
property.
on the that'd probably be on private property would be my guess.
If it's in the road, right of way of the road, and it's our responsibility to.
It wasn't
maintain
in your
that.
yard, right?
No, the one in the driveway.
Driveway?
Because apparently the lid wasn't on, so when she got out and stepped, she went down in and I had to call the mayor's office to get
Yeah.
somebody down there to fix it.
And we did it right away.
Yeah, somebody
Somebody
come
came
down.
and
One of the
fixed it
police
right
officers
away.
came down to make sure the little girl was okay and everything, and
Uh-huh.
then somebody came to get it taken care of. But I mean, that would be out of my control because I don't mess with that thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad the town did the right thing.
Me too.
Right, an official.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Your
that's all
report.
right. I don't even remember where I'm at, so.
You had
Um,
insurance.
Okay, so, update on the water treatment plant. We were, on a Teams meeting and, just before we got on, we got an email from the Ohio EPA telling us that, us being the engineers, not me, that they needed to make a change to our drawing and add a reverse flow preventer, in a line that, they overlooked. So we were this close from being done. So they had to do that, which didn't take very long, but now they had to send prints back down to the state and stuff. Our goal was to go and put out for bid next month with a bid opening in August. But that will be a little bit delayed because we still need to get the permit to install. But we paid Johnson Henry to fill out the paperwork and all the engineering stuff to apply for a WSRLA or RLFA loan through the state of Ohio. It's a combination of Ohio and federal, state of Ohio EPA and federal EPA loan, but it also has a debt forgiveness attached. So we filed for 8.2 million. The projected engineering cost is 7.2, but you always ask for more than what you need because you have no idea what the bids will be when they come back. The one good thing about this loan is there is up to 50% not to exceed 4 million in debt forgiveness. And because we are considered economically pressed because of our LMI being 55.24%, we would be eligible. So we'll know by the end of June, the amount of the loan, and then we pursue debt forgiveness. I've already called a couple of our state lawmakers to put a bug in their ear and ask them to speak on our behalf and stuff. So anyways, we may have bid openings. It may be September now, but on the water treatment plant, and we, if we were able to do, what did I figure? If we were able to do the water treatment plant at 7.5 and we got 4 million forgiven and we had to then make payments on 3.5 million, this loan sets its interest rates every month before its monthly meeting. So you can't say, well, I mean, it's not locked for a year, it's locked for 30 days. So May's interest rate was 3.42%. So the payment would be about $189,000 a year, 3.5 for 30 years, which is within our ability to pay because we paid out of the water fund over 300,000 last year just in engineering alone. So, so my point is, we're in a position where we can move forward. And, you know, the key will be is will we get debt forgiveness and to what extent will we get debt forgiveness? Because without debt forgiveness, we can't float this. It's too much, way too much.
Without water increases.
Well, I don't, yeah, I mean, you could, yeah, but that,
The other thing we've got is how that debt forgiveness works, because a lot of times, my understanding was that they'll still charge the interest on the whole loan throughout the process of it, and then at the end of the loan is when they forgive the debt. So you're paying interest on 7.5 million versus 3.5 million throughout.
yeah, I don't know.
Find out how the debt forgiveness works. Is it upfront or is it at the end of the 30 years?
But we have that. Canal Wentworth, we were looking at, trying to downsize the project. We have identified about $1 million in potential grant funding, but it leaves us, $900,000 short. And so, we tried to narrow the scope of the work, but we could only get it down to $1.5 million. I met with the commissioners today in Maumee Valley. We're going to put it on the, critical infrastructure as soon as Payne has completed their water project. And right now they're just grading and seeding. So they probably 30 days or so. So if we get put on that and we get that grant funding and stuff, that will help us. We'll also go out to, OWPC, to, get a loan / grant. So I'm hoping we can, if we're fortunate enough, at least get 75% of the projects paid for through grants. And then, we would move forward with that. But that, most of that funding, CDBG and those types of grants are a September file date. So, I mean, you're looking at, you know, October before you even know whether or not you got it. So it's a little further down the road than the water plant. I talked with the commissioners about Mervyn Street. It is on the CDBG funding list for 2026. The question is going to be, depending on our finances, whether we want to wait another year. Because this will be, we were going to do it last year and we had to wait. And now we have to wait this year. And then, you know, we might get the money in the summer of next year. So it's only about a $40,000 project. So we may just move forward and do it, using some permissive, tax funding and some other things that we have. That's where we're at with that. Nothing new on Schaefer Road.
Brian, does Mervyn Street have new water lines in it
We would put,
before?
our
we
crew
pave?
would put in water lines before they
Okay,
repave.
okay.
Because you're right, they do
Yeah.
not.
As you say, I'd really hate to pave it
Yeah.
because then the next weekend,
Yeah.
we know exactly what would happen.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to share. I mean, we have the executive session. I think that's really all that I've got at this time. If you have any questions.
Did they get back to you on the water tower money?
No, I sent him an email this morning, and it'll take a few days. I had asked, and I had told you before, there was a balance left over on the water, tower project. And I asked that we be allowed to utilize that money in buying water meters. And the state has not. They've got everything, thanked me for it, but they have not come back and said yes or no. I sent an email today. Well, they had sent us the email.
Approved it.
Yeah, we had to file a report with them. So,
I have a question on Mervyn Street.
Mhm.
Where the water line was broke. And it was filled back in, the street's never been patched. And, quite a mess down there. Getting run up, that'd be at least patched to leave it in the state of affair that it is right now.
Well,
Gravel and dirt.
the problem is that, I mean, it needs a lot of patch. I mean, yeah, you'll have one patch spot and you'll still have a crappy road. It's, the road is, it has no usefulness left. I mean, it is absolutely shot and stuff. And I mean, we've gone down, we put some stone in down there for one of the homeowners, at the edge of their driveway. We've tried to do some stuff. but it just doesn't stay because it's so beat up. And that's why I think waiting another year is probably not prudent. I think that we need to look at digging it up, putting the water line in, so these folks have a water line that doesn't break on them. On a kind of a frequent basis, but also then we come in and put in some new asphalt and everything. And it needs to be widened slightly. So we're gonna try to do that a little bit, but
Well, I know the one homeowner down there works third shift right in front of where that's been all tore up. And it makes a lot of racket with cars and stuff going.
oh, I
across.
know it. I
think
hate it when I
at
have to
least
drive down there.
something, rather than saying, well, you're stuck with it for another year.
Yeah, I think we'll probably move forward. I just gotta get with our guys to see what it's gonna take to put the water line, because we have to make a connection out here on 49. To put a shut off valve out there and then come in onto Mervyn. And then we'll take it down and then we can dog leg to the left. Cause what we ultimately want to do is make a connection on, is it Wilcox is the next street over? To the north, make a connection that water line so that we have a loop and we don't have a dead end. And that's what we have right now.
And we have that also with Buffalo too. Don't we have?
We have
that in
several.
Several of them, yeah.
Mhm.
We've
Yeah,
got
we
issues
looked
with
at
that.
going and taking Buffalo out to
No.
Canal.
Yeah.
Stuff, but
Any update on the 49 repave?
no, that's a couple years off. I mean, we've got the 49 repa
Isn't that what you said?
It was going to be, but we requested that they not do it because they need to come in and redo 49 in town.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to come in and put 2 more inches of asphalt on top of what you already have.
Right.
Which means that you wouldn't have any gutters. You don't have really effective gutters now,
Gutters now.
but they need to, so we had to have it engineered, which we have done to identify water lines, storms, sewers, things like that. And then we're going to, look at getting, try to get funding to actually have that all tore up and redone and the street lowered so that the gutters become effective.
And Main Street has new water lines now, plastic.
Yeah, I think that Main Street does.
Okay. So we.
I think that was done. I think it's still paying.
There's a loan out there. I'd have to look up.
Yeah, but I think it's still like Main Street. Any other questions?
Did you mention something about Schaefer?
Yeah,
Or were you getting ready to, or?
no,
Okay.
other than nothing's changed.
Okay.
Yeah,
And we can't reopen that.
not if you, well, if you want to take on the liability. Any other questions?
Next, Bill, you already touched on a few of these things. I don't know in the new business down there that I had listed, the garage sale. I don't know. Do you handle that part of that, packet? Or if there's any more discussion that we need? And move forward, with having Brandon draft an ordinance or what we're doing.
Can I sneak in an old business question?
Sure.
I forgot. Was there any update on those banners? Like the
Yeah, I talked to Bill again a couple days ago.
Okay.
And he said they're waiting for a grant to come in, and now that school's out, I ain't gonna be in session until school starts again.
Okay.
So,
I'll talk to you or talk to Kyle or whatever, but I think the CIC was considering maybe donating some money towards that,
okay,
towards the project or towards the
Okay.
cause. So, yeah,
excellent.
so we can look at that or whatever, but they told me to ask where it was because we
Yeah.
started talking about it because other villages are doing it, whatever. So,
Yep.
good deal. I'll get in touch with Kyle or talk to you or whatever. We'll
Mhm.
try to move that ball forward. So,
You said it's the CIC.
yes.
CIC, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, new business, garage sales. I'm sure everybody's seen Facebook and the 200 complaints piled up on it. The reason this ordinance was generated, there's been numerous complaints back before I was on council, back before I was on zoning, of people running flea markets in town, leaving stuff set up, leaving the signs up. There was a lot of back and forth with it, but the village had no ordinance of any sort to deal with it. And then just recently, we've had a lady that claimed she was running an online garage sale. She wasn't running the business, so that ordinance didn't apply to her. So that's what's caused this to be generated. There's a part in the back of it, like, let's see, is it June, when we're having our village wide, yeah, June 13th and 14th. There would be no permits required for that date or any time at the village, whatever date they set up for the village wide. And we discussed it, and the average person, and I know a lot of people are up in arms, but annually, year after year, do they have 2 garage sales every year? Or do they have more than 3 garage sales at any time? You know, you can be all up in arms about this stuff, but if it doesn't actually affect you, you know, we're trying to limit, you know, the situations that we've got problems with. I know it's, quite controversial. I talked to the village administrator in Hicksville. He sent me a copy of their, permits. They also require a permit during their village-wide garage sale for people to get them, which I don't see any need for that. If the whole village is gonna have one, why put people through the hassle of it? So that's, and the reason the description on ours is so intense, I guess you would call it, garage sales, yard sales, porch sales, because if you say garage sale, it's too easy to skirt around the edges and say, well, no, this is not a garage sale, this is my porch sale or whatever. So that's the reason it's very descriptive. I know it's probably one of the least popular things we've tried to get through, but that's the basis for it. Permits to be free, and it's something, if we had the right tech, we could have everything online. People wouldn't even have to go up to wherever Jan would decide if this would pass. But this is, these are recommendations from the zoning, and at this point, we'd like permission from the council to proceed to give it to the village solicitor to have it rolled up as a actual ordinance. So this is a good time to talk about it, discuss it, deny it, you know, so we're not gonna waste time trying to make an ordinance out of it later on if it's not gonna fly tonight. So that's the purpose for this. So that's the garage sale one. You want to just do these one at a time? And probably should.
What initiated the garage sale? The discussion, how did it get started?
Well, back, year after year, there's an individual here in town on the main drag that runs basically flea markets. They're set up for various days, more than the 3. They're usually 5 to 6 a year, or 4. There's been a lot of complaints that just a flea market looks like it's on the junky side, you know, it's used stuff, rusty stuff. So that was been the complaints, and we really don't have any way to deal with it as far as, you know, you drive into town and you see, you know, stuff set up like that. Boy, this place looks like a dump. So that was the purpose of the original one, having, you know, the garage sale.
So and not being whatever, I'm just trying to, if it sounds like the reason the permits are being introduced is because there's a problem with somebody's yard, so wouldn't we just address that? Yeah, I mean, if people think it's junk or whatever, or you know, that kind of thing
Well,
versus.
you can, but what,
Yeah, I mean-
what are you gonna use? You know, well, you're just gonna tell him and say, well, go fly your own kite. You know, it's his property.
Yeah, no, I'm just,
And
and
that's,
again,
that's
I'm
the
just,
problem we had. You can't say anything if there's nothing, you know, there's not a standard set that, you know, this is acceptable and this isn't.
yeah. I mean, I watched the video and I know you guys are trying to do good things and I hate to like beat stuff up because obviously I know you guys all volunteer. It's, I mean,
Yep.
you know, you're not getting paid to do this. Like somebody was commenting on how people show up looking at the meeting. Like these guys do not get paid. They work all day, they show up and then they get hammered
Right.
over something that, you know, again, they're just trying to do a positive thing. So, I've had a ton of people reach out to me about this. Then there are like a lot of people in disagreements and I get what you're saying. And that's what I kind of told people. I think this is sprouting from the issue with that house where, you know, she's selling things and it's like, well, I'm just having a garage sale versus, you know, and I'm like selling out of the house or whatever. I mean, I have a neighbor that I think does garage sales quarterly. And I think as Tanya pointed out, one of the things you know, a lot of people in this village have 3, 4, or 5 kids that play in softball, baseball, basketball, football. You know, like my kid grows out of stuff every time we touch his closet, I got to throw out a box of things. So I think, you know, with that, if people have that amount of stuff, it's hard for me to say, well, man, you don't have enough stuff to, you know, do 4 garage sales a year or whatever. I guess if people were complaining about it, there was complaints coming in and stuff, or like we're having too many garage sales, that kind of thing. You know, I think then you kind of go down the path, but I don't know. Again, I've had more people reach out to me to tell me that they don't like this than I ever had. I've never had anybody go, man, there's a lot of garage sales going on or whatever. So, again, just my little 2 cents relative to, you know, I don't know, us going in and limiting, you know, saying you can only have 3 sales and 2 outside of the year and whatever, and setting those kind of things. You know, I could see not having like a big neon sign in the middle of the midnight, you know, your midnight yard sale type thing. I know, but like for us, even with the signage, when we have the village-wide garage, we go put our garage sale sign out on 49, because otherwise nobody knows where we're at back there in Maumee Way. I mean, some people don't even know that addition is there now. Like, you know, it's been, and there's a lot of houses back there. So, you know, just little things like that. I think I see the general purpose of it, and that maybe like something to curb that, but I don't know that we need all this and like permits and things like that. And again, that's just my 2 cents. That's why there's 6 of us. So I just am, you know, the first one to run my yap. So
I'll take the heat off of you. So there's a couple things that I think there's a problem is, there really isn't a justification. The police have told me there are 0 complaints that they've ever had about garage sales. Now, people have their opinions. I don't like garage sales personally, but my family does. And it's one of those things where, look at, everybody's different. You know, that whether it's what's our yards, our houses, they're all part of our personalities. And I can't imagine us all being the same. And if we're talking about a sale down here on 49, sometimes you do this because you need a little extra money. And it sounds like to me when I read this, that it seeks to impose, that just the plain reading says we are trying to target those who need to make a little extra money to survive. Because the person who has 1 garage sale a year, they're not doing it to survive. But having a couple, you know, if you need a couple of them because you've been laid off, you're just cleaning up your yard. We want people to clean up their yards. And I would hate to put a barrier in front of them to go ahead with that. I mean, there's some legal issues too, I think, because we're talking about what people can do inside their home. It specifically mentions porch, which is part of the castle doctrine. It specifically mentions the basement. It specifically mentions places that we do not have any authority to touch. Also, there's also a section in there that says a police officer could go on their property to inspect a permit. Now we're getting into 4th Amendment violations if we don't have a court order saying they can.
Well,
Bryce, let me tell you right there, I disagree with that.
You can disagree.
No, but I mean, our police officers have much more important stuff to do than to walk around seeing who's having a garage
Oh, you're
sale.
exactly, well, you know, that brings up another, you're 100% right.
I don't want to put that on our police officers.
That is exactly right. I mean, that's, our resources in this town are already constrained. And having to have somebody go around checking permits, go around to issue them and everything else just seems like an undue burden on the town and the person. I don't see a need for it. I think it could just cause problems that we don't really have a problem now. Other than people don't like it because we're not all the same.
I know you disagree with what's in here.
Mhm.
This come right out of Lima, and I would think that their city would be more adept on what they can and can't do legally.
Right.
Where you're coming up with it doesn't say they're going inside. It says it has to be posted visually.
You have the word basement, porch right in there.
But they have to have it posted
So,
on the outside visual.
Just because the town,
Just to look at the permit That's what Bill's
right,
referring to.
Right. And when we mentioned towns before, we said, well, we're not that town. So that could be introduced again.
Well,
We're
I'm
not
just
that town.
saying.
We're not Lima,
You're coming
We
back
are
with all
Amber,
this stuff.
and I don't
That's
want to live
right.
in Lima.
And I want to reiterate,
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. Like, I'm
Yes.
not,
I'm
I
just
didn't come
trying to
here to
do
have,
is
yep,
just
I
try
know,
to-
Bill.
Some
I didn't come
structure.
here to hammer
Yeah.
you. Like, this
No.
isn't at you and this isn't at that zoning committee. This is the
This is
feedback that
just
we got
this.
from people. And so I just want to reiterate that. Like, I mean, this isn't an attack against you. It's just simply
I'm
with
not
this.
taking an attack.
So-
I'm
No,
just,
it's- I'm
if
not-
he's
we're not
coming up with
attacking
this
you.
legal stuff.
Right.
If
Yeah,
it's
no,
legal someplace else, it's gotta be legal.
yeah. And I definitely,
Thanks for defending
Above
the
my pay
position
grade.
of the zoning.
yes, that's what I said. Like, you guys, give you all the credit in the world because it's not an easy thing. And again, I didn't bring it up to crap on you. I just bring
Yeah.
it up because I don't agree with a lot of the things on it. And so that's why we bring them in and talk about it.
And
So,
you've had input from other people that you're sharing with the rest of the council. My opinion of it is I feel it's a little bit of an overreach for the fact that we are a small community and, we try to let people do what they can. I just wish people would be better stewards of their neighbors, and considerate of their yards. It is a reflection of the village, just kind of I hate to tell people how to do stuff on their own land or what they can or can't do, but and unfortunately, we're just in a position where we may just have to live with it. I just kind of wish people would be a little better stewards of their neighbors, if that's the correct term, but that's my opinion. I feel like this may be a little bit of an overreach for the community.
Sounds like the general consensus is not even table this, just take this off, or unless somebody wants to make a motion to have Brandon adopted, I don't think we need to sit and hammer it all night long.
We could think about it for the next month. I mean, it's not,
Do we take a vote on it, whether they want it to proceed or to
If somebody makes a
let it
motion.
die of a quick death? That way, there's no sense of tabling it and then next month bring it up and hash it
That's
out
what I
again.
said, if
If
somebody
the
wants to
majority
make, if
doesn't want
somebody
it,
wants to make a
then-
motion, then so do so, if not, then I say discussion. It's the end of it, if nobody wants to make a motion to proceed to ordinance.
Let's table it for now.
I think we just. be done
You don't
with it.
want to.
I don't think you want to table it, because if you table it, then you still got it just
Yeah,
sitting there.
let's-
I just say if there's no motion, I would say that at this point, the end of discussion on it, we'll move on to the next item of new business.
Commercial motor vehicle and recreational park. I think everybody here in the council probably heard about it one time or another. I reached out to a previous owner of B. Myers IGA. I asked them if they ever had issues with it, and they said they've had a lot of issues, a lot of complaints that the drivers would come in after store hours, leave the truck run, leave the headlights on, shining across the street, neighbors would call and complain about it. So this isn't an isolated issue in one spot. I talked to some residents that live down there on the trailer park on the east side of town. They said they've had issues in the winter time with trucks setting out to cross the road, running all weekend. And there's nothing anybody could do about it. So this is what this is aimed at, is it limited, I got another call from the residents down there beside the Dollar General store, and they said it's getting worse. They called corporate again, and it's the same thing over and over. And this isn't trying to target truckers or trying to target anybody else, but again, it's a structure. So if there is a problem, there's something here that the village can enforce. And we want our neighborhoods to be neighborhoods. We don't want to, nobody's wanting to have a semi set beside their house running all night long when you're trying to sleep, or having the lights on shining in and across the road into your neighbor's house. So that's what this ordinance was generated for. And I'd like to have the council's recommendation to move it forward to the solicitor to have it drafted into an ordinance.
I'd like to support that one.
and I will tell you just a quick, because I went to Dollar General and I talked to Rose, and she's excellent person. She's done a lot for that store. But I did talk to her today, and I actually asked her about it because I had not asked anybody down there. She said that they did talk to corporate put it in the paperwork for the truck drivers, and they actually changed the routes So they've told them they're not allowed to park in that Dollar General parking lot anymore. So Dollar General should not be a problem moving forward. And I know that's kind of what sprouted this. I didn't know about the trailer park, so that's why I mean, I don't know anything about that, but I did talk to Rose because I wanted to see. And you know, again, if anything was actually being done or whatever, she did say that corporate has changed it. They've issued the paperwork to the truck drivers. She said, you know, they've been working on it, but to get it out to all the guys that go the routes or whatever, and they did make adjustments. They've told them where they can go, like Love's or, you know, this way or the other way type of thing. So hopefully that will take care of the Dollar General. Now, that just in general, like relative to that part of it, because I know that's kind of what sprouted this thing, so.
Just a
Just,
sign posted there now. I think, didn't we talk about getting a sign?
The store told the neighbors that they could post any sign they wanted to on the fence to help. But then again, if there's no consequences to it,
Well, there would be because it's trespassing. She gave the police department permission and I told the administrator that we are more than welcome to put up no overnight truck parking. And if somebody parks there, in that case, it's trespassing, they get cited. Per the Ohio Basic Code. As far as the
owns-
east end of town,
Who
I've
owns that
never in my
property?
25 years
What's
gotten a
that?
Who
complaint
owns
from
that
anybody
property?
at the trailer court about semis parking there. That's back when 24 used to run through here for half of my career. There was semis there all night long. If you don't want semis there, it's simple. You just make that no truck parking on River Street.
and I don't, that out there, that's where we had those trucks earlier in the year where they were parking by the edge of it and all that stuff. And I think we established that's not anybody's property. That's.
I think we established nobody owns it, so
that's railroad.
I don't think the
You still
railroad
have
owns
the
it.
right to.
Right, I mean, we
think
could
that
throw up no
section says
parking
no owner
signs
on it, on the
and.
auditor's site.
There's several properties, when they changed 24 to 424 and stuff, the deeds didn't go where they needed to go, so there's property, if you go through and you follow 424, that there is no owner.
Yeah, they're just unclaimed.
Yeah.
Go to court.
But
take
the,
it.
well, the process of claiming them is long, like
But it
3
could be done.
years.
Could be done.
You're saying I should start now, is what you're telling me.
There is a chance.
Water's right.
So
That's 25 years.
what do we wanna do? We wanna do signage or do we wanna move forward with?
I could be an advocate for this because of the fact the idling and things like that, I could see where that's a real nuisance in the village. And if we need something in place that we can cite somebody for idling, no matter what it may be, trucks or whatever, even in the nighttime, I mean.
There's a couple things that I wanna, because I like the idea, but there's some issues with it. And one is section B. I don't think we can do that, where it says as used in this section, residential area means all areas within the village outside of industrial district. This is redefining all other zones. I don't
So you
like
just have to
this.
list them all out.
You would
instead
have
of-
to either list them all out and then specify. I think we got a problem because we have B1 and B2.
Which are both residential.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are. They're
B1.
residential.
Commercial residential.
Commercial residential on B2.
B1 is not.
Why don't we allow our solicitor just to go through,
Okay,
instead of having a
That's-
legal debate,
that's
let
right.
him bring back.
I
What is
think that's a
appropriate?
real problem. I think section B is a real problem. The
B1,
other
right.
problem that I see in here is in section A. It specifically says a standalone generator operating or running lights in residential areas. That means if there's a power outage, you could go after somebody in a residential area. This is not applying to just trucks. I've got a problem with that because power goes out here. And this says you can't run standalone. It doesn't say it's diesel. It doesn't say it's reefer. It says standalone. I don't like that because we've got people here that have generators. I bet some of you guys do. That's a problem. And then we also have here, there's another issue, and that is Ohio law specifically allows semi trucks to run at least 10 minutes every hour. We could be also dealing with interstate commerce if they're out of state trucks. And Dollar General are Tennessee trucks, so. Couple things to think about. I like the idea because I hate a diesel truck just running all the time in a residential neighborhood. I get it, but I think we need to make sure that it's really a residential neighborhood. And also the standalone generator. That's my problem with it.
So are you making a motion to have Brandon review the legality of?
I'm still in discussion here, but that's, I mean, maybe I'm reading that wrong, but that's how it's in there.
Power was out, I don't think anybody would be
It's-
enforced there.
It's not a matter of what we
It's a common
think,
sense
it's a
thing.
matter of what it says. That's why, and if you've got a truck with a reefer on it, they have to be running. Right? You cannot.
Yeah, but they can't, then we say that's where you have to go, cool, you can't, you can run it.
Yeah,
but
that's-
you gotta here, go to Love's or
Yeah,
go to
they-
Defiant, you know, I
can't
mean,
park here.
and that's why
Right, right, right.
Rose said they changed
That's
those
why-
routes, I think, to.
I'm not sure what the
Have them.
proper wording is. You're right. I mean, they have to be running. What is the proper wording there? Sit on the exit ramp. I don't care. Stuff like that.
Which they do.
But,
Well,
but we do have to be careful because interstate commerce laws and, you know, the Federal Transportation Board kind of sets these rules. So, and I'm sure Brandon will know that.
I think it kind of falls down to the old one. It's, good news is you don't have to go home. Bad news is you can't stay here. So that's kind of what we're addressing, back to where they're setting when they're running. So,
Mhm.
We're not saying they can't run. We're just saying you can't sit here while you run. That's kind of what I think this is addressing, is the areas where they're setting.
Well, the way this was drafted was by me. There's no legal term, I'm not a lawyer. I just wanted to get some structure to where, like you said, okay, the generator part, I agree with that. But then again, I just try to bring up something so we can get
Sure.
some structure and if Brandon can go through and check the legalities. That's what it's for. Make sure we're not breaking any state laws or federal laws.
Yes, sir.
Why don't we do that then? Have Brandon.
Go through it.
Council go through it and find out legality as to what's here and then decide if you want to have him draft ordinance.
Because, right now we got Dollar General,
So
we
in the
got.
meantime, can we have those signs put up at Dollar General? Or,
I have to get them.
or across from the trailer court? 'Cause I guess if that's not, I don't know if that's,
I mean, you have a truck that parks there. I don't,
yeah, I don't know that, I mean, I don't.
Well, if you had permission from the property owner or Dollar General to put them up, then it shouldn't be an issue to put it up there. Then, like George said, it would be a private or it's their.
Me and her spoke and stuff.
I mean, it's in the village right away, right?
I would ask
No.
that you think
No.
about the timeframe. Midday, and semi pulls into Dollar General, he leaves it run while he's unloading. What do you have, he's gonna get a ticket.
Right. That's another consideration.
it should be like after 8 p.m. or something like that. Or
Yeah,
after
It should
store
probably
close.
fall in our noise ordinance. I know we have a noise
Right.
ordinance, so it should at least abide by that.
Are you thinking that we could just modify the noise ordinance and put the diesel trucks running in there?
Guess I'm not thinking about that at all, but maybe.
Right, well, the suggestion sounded like that was. what
I
you're
just
thinking.
know we have a noise ordinance, so that we was talking about a time.
Maybe we could just include that in there. Without,
Creating a new world.
yeah, without having to redefine residential areas in anything but industrial zones or anything. And Bill, I think you did a good job with starting from scratch.
We brought up the
reason I-
topic.
The reason I put the standalone generators in there, I'm sure you've all watched the news. Oregon, California, but there's a lot of people now that are buying up old campers and becoming homeless and they're parking them on the streets. They're parking them in parks. They're buying these standalone generators. And that's where they live. And if you don't have anything in place for it now, okay, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna get them for what? Trespassing, or it's public property or on the street. So that's the reason that was added, not so much targeted at trucks, but it's targeted toward these people that are.
And the
Hot for it.
standalone generator's not targeted at residents that are using it for backup power.
Right, that's, like I said, I wrote this up myself, so.
Sure.
No, I appreciate you, Bill, you do a good
Well,
job.
and if that would become an issue, we could address it. We probably have rules already about trailers, living in trailers anyway, but. I mean, RVs,
Yeah, I believe we do.
so.
So Brandon's gonna address the legality of it, what we can do. No.
Okay, on the last item, see on the back of your is, zoning districts. And at the bottom of the page, where it's the business and related usages, the top four items was what was added to that. Part of it is the permanent conditional accessory use table is what it is. We had discussed it that these items like the restaurants, the bars, of course, recreational marijuana and the medical marijuana dispensaries were not covered in our current structure. So, and we put there, what brought it up was, again, was the restaurants that probably they wouldn't want one back there in Willie McMichael's addition. They got some empty lots. Somebody put in a restaurant. If it's not specified that you can or can't do it, you can end up with it. If they can get a permit through the state and all of a sudden you're living next door to a restaurant.
Nice if it's
So-
an Applebee's. It's
Yeah.
short walks.
Got to drive up because you can use
Yeah.
golf carts.
Perfect.
But that was the reason we put it in. Now you see the P's on there and the C. Originally, the P is it's permitted in these areas. And the place where there isn't anything, they're non-permitted. And then in the dispensary, they're conditional because of special permits that is needed through the state, needed through the village. Just because, like in the dispensaries, the downtown area and stuff are not listed as permissible. It doesn't mean they can't be there. But if they want to be there, then they're gonna have to go through the zoning appeals board, just like they are with the parking lots. So that the next door neighbors have a chance, or any property that is affected by it, have the chances, have their word, their voices heard before all of a sudden you wake up next door or next day and you've got a dispensary beside Katie Scoops uptown. That'd probably be one of the last places you want to put one next to the ice cream store, but
I don't know. If I was the ice cream store, I'd
I'm
encourage
not
it.
sure about that, Bill, but that might be the perfect target.
But that's the reason this table was generated with, they were just added items to it and
If
We're-
P is permitted, A is what?
accessories.
Accessory.
There's a little
okay.
key right there too, Bryce, on the left. Like right above business and related uses.
Oh, okay, it's on that second page, on
Yes,
the
sir.
bottom. part.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a structure we thought would be permissible with. like to
Okay,
have
so which one exactly changed?
top four. Well, it's.
Four.
so
Oh,
It's
down
kind of
here.
split down
Okay.
here.
Okay, so moving restaurants, bars, recreational marijuana dispensary, and what were they before?
But they were not listed at all.
They were not listed at all, okay.
So you're showing this as an example of the fact that they're not listed.
Oh, that's part of the book.
That's-
That's another page. When,
Okay,
our zoning inspector, he just kind of Photoshop or copied it and then they went in and added it. So you're seeing page 22 of the permanent up the top, and you're seeing page 23 down below it in that small section.
okay. But you're saying that the restaurants, bars, the dispensary and the medical dispensary were not listed
At all.
previously,
Yes.
but professional offices and parking lots were, or were
Yeah.
not?
Yep. If you look at the original copy, that's where it started at, professional offices.
So
parking
zoning
lots.
wants to add these four into the book.
Yes.
So
That-
restaurants and none of those were there before?
No. No,
So
it's been listed.
That's gonna require an ordinance.
And,
I
yeah,
think it's
and a
Bill's
public
asking.
hearing, but,
In a hearing, but.
Yeah.
You'd have to have the ordinance drafted to have discussion at the public.
mhm.
So basically, I think what you're asking is for somebody to make a motion to move forward with drafting an ordinance, correct?
Yes.
Make the change to the zoning book.
I really don't see a problem with any of that. And keeping our businesses in business areas and not residential areas. I mean, B2 can technically be both.
Yeah, what's like the restaurant and the bars, this is where they already exist, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
it's permissible and stuff.
So you're technically right now, you could put a restaurant on a
Residential property.
residential property.
If it would have to go before the zoning though, to get approved with their permits.
Not if they bought the lot and they went through the state and got permits to build.
When you still need construction permits
You got a lot right next to you.
from the town, I mean, section 800. And
This is looking pretty good.
Well, I mean, once you get the permits from the state, it's pretty hard not to issue a permit from the village.
Let's see, that's where Bourbon Street comes in. They already have the license for the distillery.
Yep.
Business is already gonna be there. And I talked to Todd Cook, he was wanting to be here tonight, but he couldn't because of a illness in the family. But they put that in there and legally that's, yeah, everything's fine. They've got the state permits, everything's ready to go, but we had no advance warning. I didn't. The zoning board had no advance warning that was good, because we have no structure in our zoning book as far as permits for businesses. You know, you need a permit in order, so we know what business is going where. There's nothing there. So this, what he did was perfectly fine, but that's what would happen if it's not listed here as, you know, you've got to have a structure to it, then they can put it wherever they'd like, you know, if they get the state license and away they go.
Let's just closing that loop.
so, well, how would that affect him with his distillery? Because we distillery listed. Could we add distillery and brewery at the same time to keep them in the same
Sure.
places?
Yeah, at the time this was written up, distillery wasn't, well, I think he had it in the works. Sounds of things he'd been, you know, working on it for several years to get
They have
all
been.
the ducks in a row and get his permits. But yeah, there's nothing in here saying it couldn't have been any place.
So add
So to add distillery.
breweries and distilleries to that.
Under bars.
Yeah, you could do it under bars and then the same letters associated with it.
And he's in a P1 business district. That's where it'll be at now. And
I mean, they are different. Like distillery and brewery might involve health department stuff. I guess bars would too, but
But that's,
I mean.
that doesn't have anything to do with us.
Production, yeah, okay, sounds good. I think I'm in favor of it. I can't think of something at this moment, so.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to go with what the zoning and planning suggested in this district redistricting. And then the distillery and brewery adding that into it. Unless, Brandon can think of something.
what zones do you want to put them? It has to be listed as, you know, where you want them or where you don't.
Right, no, I think that's a good point. I had no idea restaurants weren't included.
No, he's saying your distillery.
Distillery.
Distillery and brewery, do you want to use it the same zones as bars?
Same as bars, yeah, I would probably even put it on the same line,
All right.
unless there's a reason not to.
So Bryce has made a motion to move forward with drafting an ordinance with the recommendations from zoning, but adding breweries and distilleries with the same zoning requirements as bars. There's a second to that motion.
Second that.
And this accepts what Bill wrote, right, too? I mean, not just adding that, okay?
Yep. So motion on the floor, move forward with that Brandon draft
I
ordinance.
seconded it.
You seconded it. Okay, so Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Dean Reister.
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
and Brian Smith.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, Bill.
thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
That this time, I know Brian has already asked somebody to make a motion to move to executive, but before we do so, the people that are in attendance, would like to leave, mayor's, want to give your mayor's report?
Here's the mayor's court account for April of 2025. Total amount donated to the city is $2,761. To the state, $787.50. Indigent drivers, $31.50. Total is $3,580.
Okay. This time, we would entertain a motion to move to executive session for. What did you say, Bill?
It'll be under 121.22 G2. The acquisition of property.
I'll make it.
Okay, is there a second? Motion to move to executive session. Jason French,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Dean Reiser,
Sure.
Dean Reiser. Craig Steiner.
Yes.
Jason French, or excuse me, John DeVore
Yes.
and Brian Smith. And it is now, what, 7, 10, 11?